Hello everybody, my name's Gilbert and welcome to this LinkedIn Live. I'm delighted to be welcoming today speakers from Accenture, KPN and Telefónica, who are joining us to share with us their lessons learned and their future insights from the MWC Manufacturing Summit that was held in Barcelona earlier this year. Next slide, please. But before I introduce you to our speakers, I would like to spend just a couple of moments to introduce the manufacturing community and activities if you're not familiar with that already at the GSMA. So here at the GSMA, we are interested in creating end-to-end value in our vertical industries. And we collaborate with experts from the most innovative companies across the ecosystem to create products and solutions for areas including smart mobility, fintech, and manufacturing. Next slide, please. So in 2020, the GSMA Manufacturing Forum and Community was launched, and this was set against the context that smart manufacturing IoT connections were expected to reach about 1.5 billion by 2025. And since then, we've seen a growing interest from manufacturing and industrial sectors in topics like private networks, and also technologies like AI, edge computing, and computer vision to help drive their future use cases. So the GSMA Manufacturing Forum brings together manufacturers, network operators, and the wider ecosystem with the objective of advancing the adoption of 5G and 5G-related technologies in the manufacturing and industrial sectors. Next slide, please. So back to MWC and the Industry City. So this year saw the launch of our first Industry City with knowledge partner Accenture. And this is a demo, networking and content zone that bring together the fintech, manufacturing and smart mobility industries to see how connected technologies was helping to drive these verticals. Next slide, please. And within that, we had the Manufacturing Summit. And so the Manufacturing Summit was broken into 3 sessions. The first one looked at advanced analytics and robotics. The second looked at private and dedicated networks. And the third looked at kickstarting 5G for manufacturing. So that was really about helping manufacturing and industrial sector understand how to move into a digital transformation. And each of these sessions was comprised of a mix of keynotes and panel sessions. And that's now why I'm delighted that we're able to bring back 3 of our speakers from these sessions to share with us their experience of the Manufacturing Summit and beyond MWC, and also their future insights into the manufacturing and industrial space. So next slide, please. So without further ado, I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you to our 3 speakers. The first is Lan Guan, who is a Senior Managing Director at Accenture, leading on applied intelligence, solutions and AI. Jakob Groot is an EVP for 5G at KPN and also a joint chair of the GSMA 5G Manufacturing Forum. And last but not least, Andreas Escribano is the New Business and Industry 4.0 Director at Telefónica and also a joint chair of the GSMA Manufacturing Forum. So without further ado, I'm delighted to hand over to Lan, who's going to open the session. Lan, over to you. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Hi, everyone. It's great to be invited back to this virtual forum to speak about the topic I'm super passionate about, AI and robotics in manufacturing. So just a very quick introduction. I'm responsible for the data and AI business in Accenture. I believe I have one of the coolest jobs within the firm, helping business make sense of their data and extract value from their massive AI investments. So I believe many enterprise they have accelerated their digital journey during the pandemic, but they are still facing lots of challenges to grow and innovate continuously. So I have the pleasure of working with them to tear down all these barriers right? So that they can actually harness the power of data and AI, transform their business, and create disruptive value, in the industry. So let me start by sharing the new smart manufacturing landscape from my lens, and then I will quickly touch on a couple of trends and basically share what I'm seeing in the industry. So last time at MWC, as Joe mentioned, I shared the story of a sanitary ware company in Asia transforming its century-old craft into a digital smart factory using 5G and robotics. I picked that story because I firmly believe the biggest opportunity for AI and robotics is actually coming from the modernization in traditional industries. So given the current turbulence in the macro economy with labor shortages and lots of disruption in global supply chain, it cannot be more obvious that manufacturing companies are investing more money, more capital than ever, right, into automated solutions, into AI and robotics for their operations. So this is particularly true for the agricultural and food manufacturing industry. In fact, a recent number that I was looking at is pretty striking. The global agricultural robotics market will be worth almost $10 billion just in a couple of years. So companies are quickly turning into automation and robotics to tackle some of the mundane tasks like weeding, seeding, and harvesting in agriculture. So a couple of partners that I'm working with, they also receive lots of funding, right, from the investor community, as agriculture startups. For example, Carbon Robotics, they received almost $30 million in Series B funding financing for their autonomous breeding robot. So another lens of this is, even big players like Google, they are doubling down on their investment in this area to help manufacturers, tackle the challenges they face in the adoption of AI robotics in manufacturing. Just 2 months ago, in May 2022, Google announced its Google Cloud Manufacturing Solutions, which offers a one-stop shop factory-to-cloud engine with two components, manufacturing data engine and manufacturing connect. I cannot wait to leverage them in some of my client work. So my point here is AI in manufacturing is a bustling space for investors. So what are the latest trends manufacturers need to pay attention to? That's what I want to touch on the next couple slides. So Matt, let's go to the next slide. So trend number one, okay, I got asked by a lot of manufacturing clients. Let's go to the slide, the next slide. So a lot of clients are coming to me and asking, okay, how do I get started, right? What is the perfect path? To me, this slide summarizes the 3 stages of sophistication, for any manufacturers to turn into smart digital factory using AI and robotics in order for them to reap the full benefits of automation and AI in their industry. So they usually, a lot of them start from the bottom part of the chart, right? This is what we call the intelligence of a single device. As also what I shared in the story a couple months ago about how Jomu built a 5G ceramic factory with hundreds of robots and replaced the hazardous glazing process with their glaze application robots. Manufacturing companies, they can spring into the era of AI by enlisting robots to do many repetitive mundane tasks that humans are used to be doing, such as welding, painting, lifting, palletizing, and assembling heavy objects. But there's so much more these robots can do. We should look around the plant floor and ask ourselves the question: are there more sophisticated or highly variable tasks that this robot can help with? Coming back to agriculture, I think it's a really good example of how robots can also adapt to, part-to-part variability. In Japan, one of my favorite examples is robots have actually demonstrated the ability to cut the time required to harvest strawberries by up to 40%. How did they do that? They did that by using stereoscopic imaging systems with computer vision AI to evaluate the ripeness of the strawberry. That's a cool story. So moving up the curve here, for a truly smart digitized factory, I always talk to my clients about, we need authentic intelligence, right? So what do we need? What do we mean by authentic intelligence? So we should start to see robots performing as line managers, making, very unbiased, fact-based decisions on the floor. This is essentially the power of authenticity. I'm sure there are many experts in the audience here who are the experts in lean manufacturing. So this is analogous to lean methodology, whose three key goals are essentially to improve quality, eliminate waste, and maximize productivity. From my perspective, I think it's really cool to think about robots can actually work together, right, on the shop floor. They can share data from force sensors, collision sensors, so that they can actually help managers make more informed decisions through lots of coordination and orchestration. So the point here is now robots is actually going beyond just replacing the repetitive task on a single device. It can actually provide insights into managerial decision making. So if you, I think if you think of the role of AI in the lens of lean manufacturing, making authentic decisions, robots are no longer seen as an expensive toy. So the third stage of the focus, what I always, advise my industry clients is actually, when they are, when timing is right, when, it's not a question about the technology maturity, it's about adoption, right? So the third stage of the focus is always about augmented intelligence. So this is where robots can actually become your journeyman on the shop floor. So when we combine the brute strength of machine-centric artificial intelligence, the first stage, and also the creative power of human authentic intelligence, the second stage, we essentially get the magic power of augmented intelligence. So have you thought about this? This is actually fascinating to me. AI robots, they are actually capable of being our eyes and ears, right, to do sensing, understanding, and even reasoning beyond just being the mechanical arms. With 2D and 3D machine visions, robots can quickly develop what I call the situational awareness, right, on the shop floor to improve their mobility and dexterity to, quickly complement tasks performed by human teammates, helping robots see and hear, again, using artificial intelligence so that they can actually work side by side with people, passing tasks back and forth in a super harmonized way. I think this is a pretty cool production scene that we have all dreamed about. So that's the nirvana, right? So hopefully this chart kind of brings to life the first trend, the three stages of the sophistication for any manufacturers to adopt, AI and robotics in their industry. So let's move on to the trend number 2. So if the first slide is first topic is a little bit more technical, right? Because we touch on a lot of the technical aspects of the robotics. Second one, it may not be that straightforward, but I want to actually call out the second trend that I'm seeing over and over again in the industry. It's not just about getting the technology right. ESG goals have actually become front of mind discussions for many manufacturers when they think about investing in AI and robotics. So environmentally, with the shift towards smart factories using AI and robotics, there's a golden opportunity, right, to align to the sustainability goals so that this doesn't become an afterthought. That's basically what this trend is about. It's not a surprise that climate change has become a very urgent priority for the manufacturing industries. The Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, in the U.S. actually estimated, the manufacturing industry actually accounts for almost a quarter of greenhouse gas emission. That's what this striking number is about. So this is driving companies to rethink their operation models so that they can actually move towards low carbon or even carbon neutral manufacturing systems. So adopting platforms that actually support frontline digitization now is the path towards a more sustainable industry. Moving to cloud computing is a solid first step in cutting energy consumption. For example, I'm using Google as an example again. A Google data center is actually twice as energy efficient as a typical enterprise data center. Google has also gone a step forward to decarbonize its operations in data center. Did you know that all data processed by Google Cloud has actually zero net carbon emission? I think that's a really cool example of our leading brand, take care of the sustainability, right? When they are actually moving this kind of workloads to the cloud. In addition, wearables and energy management software on the plant floor, they can also eliminate unnecessary traveling, across the plant, which can essentially lead to a decrease in carbon footprint. For example, Schneider Electric's factory, smart factory in Kentucky, United States, they actually, integrates IoT connectivity to their power meters. So in this way, they have also optimized their energy costs by implementing, predictive analytics, advanced artificial intelligence. Did that work? Of course, right? In this case, they have recorded a 26% energy reduction, 30% net carbon reduction, and 20% water usage reduction. It's super rewarding. Embracing AI with an ESG mindset actually won them a prestigious superior energy performance certification by the U.S. Department of Energy. So in automotive industry, my last example for ESG for this slide, Ford Motors, right? They're actually working with their suppliers to help them implement carbon cutting measures. So it's not just for themselves, it's also for the entire ecosystem. So the suppliers are now on pace to reduce carbon emissions by 500,000 metric tons, while also saving the water, right? This much water equivalent of 837 Olympic-sized swimming pools. I thought that was pretty cool, right? It's a huge amount of saving and immediate benefits of paying attention to ESG, paying attention to the environmental impact, while also investing in AI and robotics. So let's move on to the trend number 3. We have to quickly address the people impact. The landscape, in my opinion, right, the landscape of the future of work needs to be completely redefined in consideration of manufacturing talent shortages and increasing digitization with AI and robotics. So job impact, automation, right? This is one of our favorite topics. In fact, since the second, industrial revolution, this theme has been a common fear, but this has been proven wrong, time and time again, as new technologies have led to greater productivity, more workers, more skilled laborers, and higher wages. So in fact, statistics, let me use some numbers here. Statistics actually show that it is the skills gap that is actually leaving many, manufacturing jobs unfilled. As a result of the pandemic and digital transformation, a recent study actually estimated a shortfall of 2.1 million skilled manufacturing jobs by 2030, costing the U.S. economy an estimated $1 trillion. But if we look deeper, right, dig deeper into this, it's quite obvious that it's an added complication with the rapid pace of a digital transformation, right, that actually alter the nature of manufacturing jobs, creating new roles and transforming others. I think it's pretty obvious to think that as production becomes more technical, it creates a skills gaps in manufacturing across all skills levels, from entry-level positions to skilled assemblers, supervisors, managers, welders, machinists, mechanics, right? One that is far too wide to fix with recruiting or hiring alone from the market. So, for example, for workers to make the most of technology such as IoT or augmented reality in metaverse, they will need to build on their existing skills and acquire new ones. So I think that's why, automation of recurring tasks has act to blunt some of the, labor shortages impact, but organizations are paying more and more attention. They're getting more and more incentivized to, refresh their future of work strategies by rethinking the composition and capabilities of the workforce. So reskilling and upskilling of their existing workforce to, respond to the acute demand of automation and, digitization triggered by AI and robotics in manufacturing has become a very, very prominent trend. So those are the, three trends I want to call out. There's no one size fits all, right? 3 stages of sophistication, working with different manufacturers to execute their own playbook, but think about different stages of differentiation. And also, at the same time of investing, also pay attention to ESG impact, pay attention to job impact, and really focusing on, reskilling and upskilling the workforce. So I think that's those are the 3 key trends. So what will the future bring, right? There's no doubt AI is changing the future of manufacturing. I think I touched on that, using different examples in March. Now, and hopefully I have shared some new insights here. Apparently some companies that I'm working with, they are already thinking way beyond the production plants. BMW, for example, they have been partnering with NVIDIA, is actually developing a virtual factory in the metaverse well before any new parts rolled off the physical production line with the Omniverse platform. So the plan is to actually optimize the whole production at the start. I think it's pretty cool for us to think about the next frontier of innovation. It's truly exciting to see manufacturing is already, extending AI and robotics to Web 3.0. So in summary, with so much technological potential, I think it's really easy to get carried away, right? There's so many choices, so many things, so many priorities. I always talk about it's important for manufacturers to constantly remind themselves, do all these automation programs, AI, robotics programs actually tie back to the goals that you're trying to achieve. This is oftentimes a balancing act across multiple things like cost, time, and degree of digitization. But when done well, manufacturers can see manifold return on their investments. So I believe we will start, hearing more remarkable stories of AI in manufacturing within the next couple of years. And I was able to share a couple of them based on, my personal experience working with industry clients. And I will always be super happy to come back to reconnect with all of you on the latest trends, stories, and even challenges that I see on a daily basis about this exciting topic. Joe, back to you.
Lan, thank you so much. That was fascinating. I think it was great to see the 3 trends that you were sharing with us. Absolutely fabulous as well to see some real use cases or hear about some real use cases. And I was quite surprised by the skill gaps numbers that you were sharing as well. So absolutely something to keep an eye on. And yes, of course, we would love to hear back from you in the future to hear about evolutions and new projects that you're working on. So thank you so much. Thanks for your time today. Great. Okay, so next, brilliant. Thanks for the next slide. Next, I'm delighted to be welcoming Jakob Groot from KPN. So Jakob, thank you so much for joining us, and over to you.
Thanks, Joe, for getting the opportunity to think back a little bit a couple of months ago what happened during Mobile World Congress Barcelona in February, and see how things progressed since that time, and what are a couple of questions. If you go to the next slide, which is just an introduction, I'm picking some of the slides which I also used during the presentation in that industry city setup, which was an excellent setup to really have the exchange of information between all of us interested in this subject. But to give you also a personal annotation to that, what I always do when I'm meeting at these conferences and fairs is also look around, talk to people, and then try to falsify or verify a couple of the ideas that I had in mind, what could determine the progress of our industry, what are the developments which are needed in that sense. And I'll give you my personal perspective on falsification or verification of some of the thoughts. So if you go to the next slide, please. I'm absolutely convinced, again, that also with the information that Lan just shared with us, that if we concentrate on the business issues, if the things that are happening in manufacturing, but maybe also in a broader sense, etc., we can bring the technology to life, but really help a lot of people, help a lot of businesses to overcome a couple of issues. And that's a lot of segments, but always think about that business first, technology second. We shouldn't start only with the technology and then develop a problem alongside the technology. We should think about the business and put the technologies and all the capabilities that we have at hand in order to solve that. And whether that's with a couple of services, and I borrowed that from our own perspective within KPN, on 5G, which we call application priority. On the health side, interaction between an ambulance and a traffic light to arrive earlier at the scene or at the hospital, which makes it safer for patients and doctors. Or whether it is a guaranteed bandwidth, some of the early stages of slicing, so that everyone in the Johan Cruyff Stadium, in our major soccer stadium in Amsterdam, gets the performance either during payment or during a match, what's happening with different viewpoints, etc. It will help over there. But very importantly, also in the manufacturing side. See this lovely ATEX certified robot, which is sniffing around at Shell refineries to see are there dangerous situations, should we send people over there, etc. It's a really a solution to a problem. And manufacturing, in my point of view, is much bigger than just only creating a certain object. It's also that process-related industries like refineries. It's also logistics with warehouses. It's also what's happening in mines, although in the Netherlands we don't have a lot of mines anymore. Let's go to the next slide and go to another viewpoint. And I think Lan already explained this a lot. We can develop a lot of equipment, etc. But how people are interacting with the equipment is really key for the right process flow, for the right quality which is delivered to that. And I think that picture was really astonishing about the number of jobs which weren't there at this moment. That's also what I saw, and that's also what I discussed a lot of times during Barcelona. The scarcity of the technical workforce, but any workforce. And that's not only at airports like Schiphol Airport in the Netherlands or Heathrow in the UK. I see it all over the place. There is a lack of the right workforce at this moment in time. So we need to put in machines in order to overcome these issues. And that also means that we have to introduce low-code platforms, because we don't have the time anymore to compute, to develop the software, write the software, etc. We need these digital twins quickly, so that we can adjust the robots to do what they need to do. And what then comes into play is that a reliable network is always necessary. And I think 5G with the IoT components, which we are discussing in our forum several times a year, is really something which is important in this sense. I saw a question during from one of the viewers, whether cloud is very important in it and whether it will be used. Yes, absolutely. It's not only the cloud, but it's also edge computing or near edge computing. It's maybe not on the customer premises, but maybe very close to the customer premises, where all the data is processed, because it's such a vast amount of data. You can't do it just on a central location. But then what struck me, which is a little bit the next slide, we from the manufacturing side, we are also very, very pragmatic. We try to find solutions and bring in the things which are necessary at that moment in time. So we see the problem and we try to fix it, etc., with all the components that we have. But it's never only the telco. It's never only the manufacturer itself. It's never the system integrator like Accenture. It's really a combination of things which is needed in order to develop that full solution. On the endpoint side, on the AI algorithms that Lan also discussed, on the on-prem edge, the near-prem edge. Some things which are done in the cloud, but also localization is very important in manufacturing. So we have to add components to that, and we have to come up with an open ecosystem so that we can really develop that. And the picture that you see was the opportunity that we got from GSMA to bring a robot in, which is really a robot to get all the different parties together and solve the issues which are necessary for that robot to do the things that they need to do. Whether that's vision, whether that's bringing stuff to one place, whether that's guarding things, etc. So everything can only be done if we build out that ecosystem with a couple of parties. If we then go to the next slide, I already touched that ecosystem, and I already touched the scarcity of the personnel. So the robotization is absolutely necessary to boost the production. And that's what I saw during a lot of presentations during Mobile World Congress. Everybody is convinced that we need to do that. But robots also need to cooperate with each other. And sometimes it's just an arm picking up things. The second time, it's a robot which is driving, etc. And managing that flock of robots is some of the things I think we need to investigate. I saw a couple of very interesting companies working on that, but that's absolutely necessary. Automation, also automation of your network management, is key in order to reduce the downtime. Because if the network is not available, the full production process could be come to a standstill. And so it's automation not only in the production, but it's also automation in the network management. And then virtualization, which is maybe over-the-shoulder coaching. Coming back to that shortage of people, if somebody who is more experienced can look what the novice is doing in that plant in order to make some repairs, etc., and give him advice, that probably that more experienced guy can help a lot of novices in order to do that. Instead of bringing two people to the same place, you can do it with one, but then with a HoloLens or things like that, you can really help virtualize the presence and solve the things which are necessary in that sense. So I think we are in a very inspiring segment of the industry that we can really help a lot of things. But I also found out a couple of other elements walking around during Mobile World Congress, and I presented them on the next slide, which will be the end of my part of the presentation. Remarks. One of the things is, I already told you about the practicality that we try to bring. What I saw were several booths which were always talking about metaverse, the big concept, etc. And I think Meta itself is now already downplaying a little bit what they think they can achieve in the short term. I think we got it back to augmented reality, virtual reality, etc., over-the-shoulder coaching. So we're bringing it back to something which is almost mainstream technology, which can be used today, tomorrow, all the time. So we make it practical. And metaverse, it will come there, but it will take a couple of years. We should let it happen. Visual monitoring and visual inspection and quality management, etc., by AI-driven automation is, I think, one of the things which struck me over there. There are so many instances, so many people working on it, etc. It's really helpful. It will really improve the quality of all of the things which are produced in our manufacturing plants. So I think something to pursue and work on. I also saw that ecosystem, bringing a lot of people together, and also the supporting systems in order to get these ecosystems together. A company like Unmanned Life, which is dealing with that flock of robots, whether it's a driving robot, a arm, a drone, something else, etc. I think bringing that all together is really solving the issues which are in there. And what I also saw is that although it's Mobile World Congress, so you think a lot about mobility, wireless connectivity, etc. It's really a big industry forum, and because very amazing. Fisker Karma, a car manufacturer, I think what I remember from Sweden, they introduced one of their new and latest models during Mobile World Congress. Isn't that fascinating that a Mobile World Congress, which formerly was about antennas and handhelds, is now also dealing with cars and edge computing and data sovereignty, etc., which is absolutely needed in order to provide the right help and the right support to all of our customers. But I also came back with a couple of questions. So it's not only verification. Yes, we are doing the right things, but we should improve maybe the speed of development. I also came back with some questions where I'm still puzzling how to fit it all in. How can the hyperscaler community, the system integrators, the OEMs in the mobile world and the telcos really cooperate? Are we real friends, or are we sometimes also enemies? Are we eating each other's bread, etc.? I hope that we can really develop something which is the cooperation, which is really helpful for everything, because I'm convinced that no one has the sole answer to every problem. And the other thing which struck me, which puzzles me already for quite a long time, it's the private mobile networks. I sometimes go back 20 years in history, and I already worked in telecommunication by the time, and everybody wanted to have a dark fiber network and wanted to do their own lighting, develop their own marketplaces and things like that. And after a while, everybody realized, that's a damn lot of work to do, to keep all the security patches, to do the innovation, do regular maintenance on it, etc. I'm still puzzled whether private mobile networks with all the capabilities which are in there are really the most important step forward. So is it really part of day-to-day business, or is it something like a hype that after 5 years everybody realizes maybe that's we could leave that better with the guys who are doing this already for ages, etc., and build the right service level agreements around it, the right contracts around it, so that we can really bring that what's needed in our environment. So for me, Mobile World Congress was a fine look conference. Meet people again in person after 2 years in hybrid senses like we're doing it today. It brought me a lot of verification on the things, but also the knowledge that we need to speed up the development, and left me with a couple of questions which I try to answer next time when I'll be visiting Mobile World Congress again. And I hope this was a little bit inspiring for you. I give it back to Joe to introduce the next speaker. You're on mute, Joe.
I beg your pardon. Thank you. Apologies. I was saying thank you so much. Thank you for bringing with us your insights, and that was, yeah, it was really great to see, particularly all your thoughts from Congress. I was just saying when I was on mute that I wanted to just go right back to the beginning of your presentation where you mentioned that the place to start is with the business problems and trying to solve the business problems rather than trying to start with the technology, which is, you know, hearing that a lot and makes an awful lot of sense. Also, the skills gap challenge coming back again, and I hadn't actually heard the term over-the-shoulder coaching, and I really like that, and I think it really describes exactly what it's doing, which is fabulous. And then of course the ecosystem is another theme that comes up. I think I agree with you that this is the way forward with ecosystems, but I think, you know, it's great that you highlighted those challenges there about how we ensure that we bring the ecosystem together to work to bring forward new solutions. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your thoughts and your time today. So if we move on to the next slide then, last but not least, delighted to be welcoming Andres Escobar. So Andres, thank you for joining us, and over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to share these little ideas about the how is the technology helping in the industry sector transformation. We are use several real examples of how is use the technology to transform the business. As Jakob mentioned, for us the important thing is how the business are use the technology and not vice versa. Next slide, please. Next slide. The first thing is try to put a focus in the real challenge that we have in the real world for Industry 4.0. The first one is usually a trend that is the use of the 5G to build the concept of the wireless factory where all elements are moving and are not connected with wired connection. This is the first step that appears like a challenge in the real world to guarantee that really we are able to transform the real, the current way to manufacturing things. The second topic is regarding with how is the best way to approach this digital transformation. Basically, based in our experience, the more easy way to adopt the change is based in the use case approach. Means instead of thinking that we are deploying technology like that, really the many companies that is working with us are using the use case like a engine for digital transformation, and later on we are starting to increase the number of use case that is using for this digital transformation. The third point is regarding with the design of the technology framework. Is not creating use case, deploy like let's say silos. Is part of the digital framework where different technologies are supporting this digital transformation. The next point is talking about the challenge regarding with the quality and service level agreement. We are talking about industry and it's not consumer approach. It's necessary to guarantee several lines. It's necessary to guarantee a reliability in the deployment of the different technologies that we are using in this let's say environment, and it's our main focus for the future. The next point is regarding with mixing of different users of the technologies. Today in industry, the challenge really is how it's possible to take advantage and experience of the OT versus the new technologies and flexibility that IT offer for the company. And mixing both worlds are complex, but today, step by step, they are mixing different technologies and different use cases to really accelerate this convergence of different technologies. And the last point, and for us one of the more important one, is the change management. When we are launching this digital transformation for Industry 4.0, really we forget one of the more important pieces for us for this digital transformation, the employees. One of the things that we, let's say, suffer during this transformation is we don't have embedded the employee like a part of this digital transformation. For this reason, now we are talking about the Industry 5.0, where the employee is part of this digital transformation and use of these digital technologies for, let's say, accelerate the adoption of the different use case. Next slide, please. Today, we are trying to use different examples of different technologies of this framework to try to explain and how the benefits, let's say, come to the companies in a quantitative and qualitative way to use this kind of technologies. This is the, for example, next slide, please, is a use of the concept of the smart port. You can see here the use of computer vision technologies that combining a set of different technologies that you can see later in the bottom of the slides, like Internet of Things for connecting the different cameras that is necessary to put for the, in this case, for the port access, for the toll gates. The 5G for connected all this camera and take actions connecting in a real time all this information. The edge and artificial intelligence combining the possibility to, let's say, analyze all video image and in this case, identify all the signaling for the big vehicles to identify if this vehicle is dangerous or not, or identify the container ID for guarantee that you are able to, let's say, take control of the access for the different port, outside and inside. Obviously, there appears a huge amount of benefits. The first one is related with the resource that you need to put, like a port, to identify this kind of container. You don't use a manual way to do that. It's fully automatized. And you can see here that we are practically saving 8 hours per year per vehicle for identify the container tracks and so on. It's amazing the number of, let's say, benefits that offer and simplify the process, and obviously there are more fluid traffic transportation for the ports, again, inside and outside. There are other benefits that is less tangible, but it's quite important for the sustainability of our future for the Industry 4.0. In this case, the CO2 emission are really reduced in a number important of kilograms per year. Basically because the track doesn't stop. It's a continuous moving of tracks that are they are not stopping in a queue. They are not need to wait for people tracking or take note for the information of the container, and all these elements are processing directly for the ports and take all the data for let's say, information in real time about which toll gate is more, let's say, more dense or not, or they try to, let's say, anticipate traffic and so on, and take decision, basically taking information about the data that we are obtained for this project. Next slide, please. Other example that is applied in this case for logistics, using a little bit the same components, Internet of Things for the camera that we are using, 5G for the connection of these elements, edge and artificial intelligence to processing the computing capabilities that is necessary to be deployed. In this case, we are using the computer vision technologies for identify a volumetric measurement for a project that we have in Gilbert in Barcelona, in Spain, where we have a warehouse that the different, let's say, assets are storage for a temporary way, and it's quite important to identify the volume that you are declared for this, let's say, boxes to distribute in the best way the different elements in the warehouse. Okay, for this technology, for this solution, we are using a combination of 3D cams or optical cams to first identify the ID for the box, all elements that identify the asset, and the second we use the 3D cams to let's say, estimate the volume that is around the different asset that is moving for the warehouse. This is important because we are able to, let's say, align it, the declaration volume with the real volume. There are a lot of benefits again for this case for the companies. We are inspection of 100% of the managed cargo automatically, instead to use only a partial test or a partial inspection for different, let's say, cargo. We are 100% of the old cargo are identified. And second, obviously, we are reduce all deviation and operational costs for misunderstanding or for mistake in the in the process to identify the cargo that you are declared full for your storage. This is one of the example of use of this combination of technology, again, basically using the combination of this technology framework. Next slide, please. The next example is use the digital twin. Here for us, digital twin makes make different. We are using digital twin for two concepts. One is related with the process that is inside of the factory, and second is for simulate or for virtualize the product itself. In this case, the example is focused in the process that is behind of the factory. Next slide, please. This is the example of digital twin deployed in SEAT, in Spanish automaker that is belong to Volkswagen Group. Here is we are used for optimization of the all logistic flows. Let me explain that here we are using again another combination of technology that included the same piece that we mentioned before, and now we are integrated the AGVs, that is the autonomous guided vehicles that move in the different elements in the different factory for the assemblies, for assembly and something like that. Here the important thing is all the information that we obtain for the AGVs and different sensors are integrated through the different MES and SCADA softwares, and we are able to simulate and virtualize how is the logistic process. We are able to simulate what's happened if we are integrated another AGVs, or reduce the number of AGVs, or reduce the time for the routing of the different AGVs. And we are creating different results, and obviously reporting with analyze several scenarios in a virtual space instead to test it in the real environment. And later on, we are able to really obtain benefits that is translated in this case to benefits in the overall operational effectiveness of the machines, that is increasing at 10%, and obviously a reduction of the production time in 25%. If you imagine the number of, let's say, of cars that is manufacturing in this kind of, let's say, of factories, the money that is behind of that is amazing. And again, it's the use of this kind of elements or simulations tools to guarantee that really we are able to be more efficient and apply technologies for the benefit of the business instead to use, like we mentioned before, technology like that. Next slide, please. Here is another example. In this case, we are trying to put the example about how it's possible to use one of the benefits that 5G offers, that is related with the mobility and integration of the V2X technologies for integrated element that is moving with other elements that is in the industrial environment. In this case, next slide, please. The example is Barcelona Port, where we are integrated different elements, in this case, cranes, vehicles, and employees. They are moving, obviously, in a huge space, and there are different, let's say, areas that is possible to, let's say, cross both. And here the main focus is try to minimize any kind of incidents, accidents, or something like that. To do that, we are integrated elements like B2X communication in the different elements, and we are using a multi-access edge computing, MEC, through the 5G technology to connect it in real time, all elements that is moving across the port to identify, let's say, possible collision or something like that, to integrate all the information and let's say, create the intelligence that control all the traffic. We are using a concept that is the cooperative intelligent transportation system that is hosted in this edge, and they are integrated all information coming from the different areas. As we mentioned before, cranes, vehicles, and employees to optimize the different routes, avoid the risk of collision, and minimize, obviously, any kind of, let's say, incident, accidents, or something like that. This is the main objective that we have. Increase, in this case, the safety, where the human are integrated with digital process. Here we are, again, combining the elements that is mentioned before in the technology, that Internet of Things, to integrate sensors in the employees, in the cranes, on the different vehicles. 5G, like let's say, elements that we are connected all different technologies through the different device. The edge for the computing and artificial intelligence that is created the algorithms to coordinate the different routines. Next slide, please. Now we are moving to another example. In this case, the example is regarding with the 5G logistic center and how the logistic again is optimize different process. In this case, it's a little bit different. Next slide, please. We are not talking about the computer vision. We are talking about the use of the private 5G networks to integrate two use cases mainly. The first thing is all the pallet carrier routes that is similar like an AGVs, autonomous guided vehicles that is moving in an optimal routes to to pick up any kind of storage assets and moving to the classification area and vice versa, depending on the flow. Here we are use 5G and again and MEC and the edge, that is mobility edge computing to let's say integrated the computing and communication over the same infrastructure to take the minimum latency and maximum reaction time to process all the information that is necessary to taking care for the storage and processing the pick and package process. And there are another important use case. In this case, is the elimination of the physical wiring for the virtual parcel sorting machines, like you see here in the pictures. That is fully controlled for 5G, where the latency and the milliseconds that is necessary to take action to classify and identify packets is supported directly for this kind of, let's say, of technologies. Here the more important benefit for the customers is the time that is improved, that we are reducing more than 20% in the optimization of the pallet carrier routes, and we are reduce the time to classification. They are flexible to integrate more or less element to classify packets depending of the seasons that is necessary to attend. If we are talking about Christmas, summer, or whatever is the customer necessity. Here again, there are a set of let's say, of framework, the technology that is embedded in this kind of, let's say, solution. Internet of Things for all elements that is related with the communication of the AGV sensor that we have for the parcel sorting, 5G for the full connection of the different elements of device that is part of the solution, edge for the computing, in this case on-prem to guarantee the latency that is necessary to coordinate all the pieces, and artificial intelligence and robots to take the, let's say, the movements of the real world, in this case for the robots, to storage or classify the different assets. Next slide, please. And this is more or less the last of the example that we have. This is the next step that we are working on today is the 5G intralogistic management platform, where we are not only managing only one kind of, let's say, of AGVs, we are integrating all the process in a platform that is able to integrate different vendors of the AGVs and MRs and created a flexible and efficient and traceability process to distribute different elements through the different areas of the factory. In this case, taking care of if we need to classify or we need to store it or other kind of, let's say, of use case that you need to cover for this logistic company. Here, the more important thing is we are deployed edge, 5G and AGVs in the same elements, and we are creating an orchestrator that is able to control all the different software for the AGVs routing and something like that, integrating all elements that you need to control the different orders for the AGV routing, independent of the vendor, independent of the technology that we are used for guiding the vehicle. If there are LiDAR or other kind of optical or other kind of technologies. Here, the potential benefits for the customer are related with the savings that we are supporting this business case. We are launching the proof of concept this year, and we are starting to obtain the first numbers during this year. And the main objective is to reduce in more than 300K per year, in all lines of use of these logistic companies for a year. I mean, it's a huge, let's say, saving for the company that allow to integrate more and more flexibility, and in the other hand, be more competitive for these logistic areas. And next slide, please. And here the summary for this, let's say, example is more related with first, again, is business approach, is not technology. Second, there are not only one technology, it's not only 5G, it's the combination of 5G, edge computing, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and computer vision, like we mentioned before, where we are creating this digital framework where really the Industry 4.0 moving faster to adopt this change. And the last one is regarding with the concept. It's necessary to think in a different way. It's not replicate the current process. The idea is build a new concept of digital manufacturing, and many of the ideas that we have in the traditional approach doesn't make sense because the technology will allow us really to help a customer to adopt the technology faster and be more competitive for this, let's say, market that is quite dynamic. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Andreas, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. That was, I really appreciate you taking us through those examples. And what I really liked about the examples, and actually you summarised at the end, was that they were demonstrating all of the various different types of technology that they use. So you're absolutely right. We often shorthand to 5G. I think I sometimes try and extend it a bit to 5G and 5G related technologies. But you're right, robots, AGVs, IoT, edge computing, computer vision, there's a whole array, and you'll need different types of technology depending on the use case that you're trying to solve. So thank you so much for showing us that. And also just picking up from earlier on in your presentation when you talked about change management. So one of the things that we've talked about earlier in this session is about the skills gap, but also of those staff that we do have in place, ensuring that they can move with the changes that the organisation will need to put in place. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking us through that today. So if we can move on to the next slide, actually the one after that would be fabulous. Last slide from me. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, want to hear any more, I need to tell you about our next events that are happening. So we have MWC Las Vegas, which is happening in September, and our next manufacturing summit will be on Friday the 30th of September at Las Vegas in person. And of course MWC Barcelona will be returning in February. You can find all the information about our manufacturing activity on our website at gsma.com/IoT/manufacturing. That will include a copy of this video, which will be uploaded, probably available next week, with any Q&As that are appropriate that will be added there. And finally, you can get in touch. So if you'd like to be part of our community, our manufacturing and industrial community, we have our emails, manufacturing@gsma.com, or you can email me direct at jgilbert@gsma.com. And so I think it's for the last slide, please. And that is to say thank you. First of all, thank you to our three speakers today. Incredibly insightful. Great to have a wrap up. It's 5 or 6 months later, but also to hear about the future, which I think is something that we're all interested in. And also thanks to everybody that's joined us on the call today. We really appreciate your time. And thanks very much. And we hope to see you at the next event. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.